Hey everybody, Luke Gordon here. If you know someone who is starting to suffer from cognitive decline or dementia or even Alzheimer's disease, I wanted to start this series of videos to help you either help yourself or help these people improve their brain function. And so this is going to be kind of a series of videos that I'm going to go through and take a lot of the information out of this book here. So it's called Reversing Alzheimer's. It's by Dr. Heather Sandison, and just a ton of good information in here, again, about improving cognitive health and reversing Alzheimer's, as the name implies. And so whether or not you have like an official diagnosis of Alzheimer's or you or a loved one do, there's a ton of information in here, all designed to help you improve your brain health. So I just kind of wanted to go through in this video, we're just going to start from the beginning of the book, basically, and I'm just going to take topics that I thought were super helpful and kind of easy to organize too mentally and gives you some tips. And so in this video, we're going to talk about what she calls the 6 components of brain health. And so I'll tell you what those 6 components are. And then the nice part about this section too is that she goes through and gives you like one tip in each section. And she says, if you're only going to do one thing about this aspect of your brain health, here's what you want to do. So I think that's really helpful. So you should get 6 good tips here and get kind of a baseline understanding what actually is affecting your brain health. So again, even just mild cognitive decline to severe cognitive decline in dementia and Alzheimer's, this should really help you get the ball rolling. And then in future videos, we'll just keep going through the book, and I'll give you what I think is the most, the most user-friendly and important aspects and tips. So let's start with those 6 components then. She's got a nice little diagram here. I'm on page 9. If you do want to get the book and follow along, you're more than welcome to. So those are the 6 components. The first one is toxins. And so she says toxins can keep your body in defense mode and diverting resources away from creating neural connections in your brain to actually causing damage in your brain. So toxins is number 1. The second one is nutrients. So a big key in this one is that a lot of us aren't getting the nutrients we need from our food. And she goes later on in the book, I'll talk about this later, but too many carbs and sugar can physically damage the brain. So number 2 then there is nutrients. Stress is number 3. So stress can have a positive impact on your brain, or it can have a negative impact on your brain. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but there are good forms of stress, like stressing your brain to think about a hard problem, or causing stress in your body by good types of exercise, which is really important for brain health, whereas other types of stress can be really bad for your brain, like environmental stresses and the stress of everyday life or stressful situations. So stress is an important part of brain health and brain function. So that's number 3. Number 4 is structure. This one's a little bit more challenging, I think, to wrap your head around, but she says it includes your genetics, it includes things like chronic pain, even the shape of your airways, which can impact your sleep and oxygen and how much your brain can repair itself each night. So structure, that's number 4, kind of a bigger conglomeration, I think, of things, which, again, as we go through other environmental factors later in later videos, I'll break down more specifics in that zone. But for now, number 4 is structure. Number 5 then, she says, is infections. So again, kind of like toxins, they're diverting energy in your immune system in your body to other sections where you could be using the energy for brain health. And then toxins can directly damage your brain. And then the number 6 one, the last one for the components of brain health, she refers to as signaling. So signaling refers to chemical messengers in the body that interact with the brain, including reproductive hormones, proteins and peptides, as well as brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's BDNF, kind of a big theme in this book, which we'll talk about later. So again, that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So again, those are your 6 components of brain health. And again, that's just kind of higher level. Here's what it is. And later on, I'll talk a lot more about, some more specifics in each section and what you can do to improve brain health, which is ultimately, that's the goal. So if we go into the following pages then, I want to share those 6 things then. For each section has one tip. She says if you could just do one thing to improve this aspect of your brain health, here's what you should do. So going to the first one, toxins. She says if you can do one thing to reduce your toxic exposures, this is an interesting one. She says, take your shoes off at the door and open your doors and or windows for an hour every day. So that's actually 2 things, but that's the one thing. And it's interesting. She says to take your shoes off because basically, as we're walking around outside, there are lots of various toxins that are on the ground, especially where I live, like in the spring, summer, fall, where people are like, you walk down the sidewalk and there's chemical fertilizers and things like that. So there's more toxins on the ground than you would think. Even just like the dirt you're bringing into your house, which can aerosolize, there's toxins in that too. So she says, take your shoes off at the door, which I am bad at doing. I wear my shoes in my house. I've got hardwood floors, my feet hurt, if I don't. So that's one to consider. And then opening the windows an hour a day, that's kind of a tough one where I live, especially this time of year. I'm making this video in early March. It's cold here where I live, so that's a hard one. I think air filters is another option there. I mean, I try to get fresh air in the house, but when it's 25 degrees, I also don't like paying to heat that back up to 68, 70. But that's your one tip for toxins. Okay, what was the next one? The next one is nutrition, specifically poor nutrition, which is pretty common and does affect your brain health. She said if you do one thing to take better care of your brain through diet, start seeking lower carb alternatives to some of the foods you eat most regularly. And then she gives some examples. So if you're used to eating just crackers, you could substitute it out for an almond flour cracker or a flaxseed cracker. If you like a lot of rice, try cauliflower rice or quinoa. Replace pastas with bean-based pastas. And then trying to avoid alcohol is in there too. Going later into the book, we'll talk about one of the most important things she highlights is a ketogenic diet, which is basically very high fat, super, super low carb. Really good research about doing low carb diets for brain health and higher fat, especially good fats. So again, if you do one thing for nutrition, start cutting down those carbs and those sugars. All right, so that was area number 2, stress. And stress is number 3. Specifically, social isolation is a huge one, big indicator, risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, as well as just general cognitive decline. So the one thing you can do to have a positive impact on stress is to prioritize social time. So that could be getting together with loved ones. That could be going for a walk, going out to like a class, like a yoga or a Zumba class, something like that. Get that connection, because the connections, the social connections are really, really important for your brain health, because it keeps those neural connections firing. So it actually keeps your brain engaged, keeps it stimulated. So it's really important to get that social time in. So that was number 3. Under structure then, she talks about, again, various things from genetics to sleep apnea. The one thing that she recommends under structure is that determine if you have sleep apnea. And if you do have it, follow the treatments for it. So she says whether it's a problem with weight or you snore, whatever it is, she says even mild sleep apnea equates to mild brain damage every night. So you can get a sleep study, and then there's lots of various treatments for sleep apnea. Improving your diet, exercising, that stuff tends to help too. Cutting down alcohol helps with sleep apnea as well. So again, if you have sleep apnea, she says it's super important that you address that. Okay, I believe that was number 3 or 4. The next one then is infections. And she mentions a couple of like the common ones, like herpes outbreaks, which apparently if you have herpes, like frequent herpes outbreaks, you are 3 times more likely to get dementia. So didn't know that. So what does she say here? If you do one thing to address your infectious load, this is interesting. Brush and floss twice daily with no exceptions. So apparently your oral health is super impactful for your brain health as well. And if you have like ongoing infections, it can really have a negative impact on your brain. So make sure you're going to a dentist. I'm really bad about going to dentists because I don't care for them. But there are like the more naturopathic, I forget what they call them nowadays, biological dentists that I think I probably will go to soon. So yeah, pay attention to your oral health there. And then for the last area here, signaling. She talks a lot about hormones and reducing your plastic exposure. She says if you do one thing for better signaling, exercise. And you will see this everywhere related to brain health. Exercise, exercise, exercise. It's one of the best things you can do for brain health. And it's one of those things that you have complete control over. So we call it a modifiable risk factor. So exercise. She talks more about specifically why you should exercise. We'll go into that later in the book. She also talks again about that BDNF that I mentioned earlier, which is again brain-derived neurotrophic factor, super important for brain health, and she calls it your elixir of youth for the brain, and that is produced when you exercise. So there you go. So that's my first video. I know it got kind of long, but if you really do want to understand more about brain health, I would say keep following along with these videos. I'll keep breaking it down for you. Buy the book if you want to. I should be able to put a link down here below for the book, or just Google it, Reversing Alzheimer's. It'll pop right up on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. And yeah, in future videos, we'll look at more things that affect brain health. In the meantime, leave a comment below if you've had some good success with improving brain health. If you know more than I do, which you may, leave a comment, try to help somebody else out, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.